Welcome to Real Vermont News. Today, we're looking into the continuing assault by Vermont's radical left politicians on our constitutionally protected right to keep and bear arms. The progressive and Democrat legislators pictured here have voted to attack those rights over and over again. They voted to interfere with our ability to negotiate with a neighbor or even a relative to buy or sell a gun without having to go to a gun store to get the feds to bless the transaction. They voted to make us wait before we can get possession of a handgun we just bought. They voted to arbitrarily limit the size of an ammunition magazine we're allowed to buy. And they voted to forbid legal adults who happen to be under the age of 21 from buying a gun at all. That's only what they've come up with so far. There is absolutely no indication they plan on stopping these infringements of our rights anytime soon. They don't care that their gun control measures solve no obvious problem. Does anybody think Vermont really has a gun crime problem? No. These legislators passed New York-style gun control laws because they just don't like guns. And it's fair to say most of them don't like people who like guns either, which in Vermont is mostly us rural men. Talk about bigotry. These left-wing radicals who are so quick to claim bigotry in others don't realize how obvious it is that they hold the traditional lifestyle of rural Vermont men in contempt. And we feel that contempt. How can they legitimately represent us, the people of a rural state, when they actively dishonor such an important part of its tradition? Fortunately, Vermont's founders anticipated this assault on our God-given rights when they wrote Vermont's Constitution. The right to defend ourselves has been protected in that document since it was signed 226 years ago. And it is a wonderfully clear, specific, and absolute document. Article 16 of the Vermont Constitution says flat out that the people have a right to bear arms for the defense of themselves and the state, end quote. That's even stronger than the Second Amendment or the U.S. Constitution, which doesn't specifically mention personal defense. Now, because any infringement of our constitutional rights requires the state to show that it has a, quote, compelling state interest, end quote, in restricting those rights, and Vermont doesn't have enough of a gun crime problem to meet that test, these legislators have actually violated their oath of office, in which they swore not to directly or indirectly do any act or thing injurious to the Constitution, end quote. But these gun laws are injurious to the Constitution, and since none of the representatives here give any indication they will ever stop violating their oath by injuring the Constitution in this way, we need to vote them out of office. Really, there's no debating with these people. They need to go. To make that happen, we must start this year finding some more liberty-minded Vermonters to campaign hard from now through next year to win a seat in the legislature in the November 2020 election. We must find people to run who understand that the Constitution is not a catalog of suggestions that can safely be ignored. It's a sacred document. It should never be violated. And if we can't find other people to replace these gun grabbers, these oath violators, we're just going to have to step up to the plate and run for office ourselves. It's the only way we're going to change things. In fact, that level of personal involvement is the only way anything ever really changes. You know it, and I know it. And that's all the Real Vermont news we have time for. A lot more happened, and we'll be looking into all of it.
Paid for by Rescue Vermont Political Action Committee. Bob Frenier, Treasurer.